Welcome to this edition of Rattling the Bars. I'm your host, Mansa Musa. Today, we'll be doing a series on Father's Day. And more importantly, we'll be doing a series on the impact the criminal injustice system has on incarcerated parents, or more importantly, on the family overall. Joining me today is an extraordinary individual to talk about being a parent, being a justice impact parent, more importantly, being an upright, stand-up black man. Ernest, welcome to Rattling the Bars.
Hey, I'm sorry. I do call you Mr. Hopkins, but yeah, Mansa, thank you. You made me feel like I was on a Shannon Sharp show, man, with that introduction.
Yeah, we a little better than Shannon Sharp. Plus, like we're not trying to get the ratings.
Exactly.
We're trying to get the story out. We up the real news. But let's talk about Father's Day. Now, in full disclosure, me and Ernest was in a program called Georgetown Pivot. That's where I first met Ernest at. And I think they was going around, we was even doing tell us something about ourselves. We was going around, this was our first introduction to everybody coming on in that space together. We had seen each other when we registered up at the school, but this was during the time of COVID. So we was on Zoom, and when they got to you, this would impress me the most about everything that you said. But then once I got to know you, and I really realized that you are an extraordinary individual. You know, you might not present yourself like that all the time, but in terms of who you are as a person, I recognize that. But this was stuck out with me on something you said when you talked about your children. And I'm gonna let you tell our audience, first of all, a little bit about yourself and some of the things that you're doing. Then we'll get into that.
Okay, well, thanks, Mansa. My name's Ernest Boykin. I'm a father of 7. I have probably every age child that you could think of. No, I'm sorry. No, I have 2 in college. I have 2 under 2 years old right now, and I have a couple in the middle. And I'm proud of them. They're all, the lights of my life. You know, when I was away, that's what kept me grounded, looking at their pictures or talking to them on the phone and things like that. Currently, I'm the part owner of Straight Route Trucking. We're a trucking company out of Washington, D.C. That we move cargo from point to point all across the United States of America. I started that with my life partner, Brissa, and we've been in business since 2022.
Okay, now let's talk about your children. So how much time did you serve prior to being released?
I served approximately 6.5 years.
Okay, and in the 6.5 years, you had, how many children did you have when you left the street?
I had 5 children, and I'm not just talking about biological. I'm talking about,
we talking about children.
Children, yeah, people that I was responsible for.
Right.
Five individuals.
All right, and in terms of when you got arrested and ultimately sentenced, who was responsible for taking care of your children?
Well, their mom. It fell all on their mom. It fell on my parents too, because my kid's mom and I really weren't getting along. So during the school year, the court had awarded me custody and guardianship over the children because I was sending my kids to private school. You know, when the kids were living with their mom, she tried to put them in public school. But the court felt like they were getting a better education in private school, so they sided with me and let me control that.
While you was incarcerated?
No, before
you got incarcerated. Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
before I went to prison. So, it just was a situation where my parents kept them until school let out, and then they went with their mom. So my parents shared in some of the burden but or the responsibility, not the burden. And my kid's mom, it was pretty much her responsibility to deal with all the children herself.
Okay, what and in terms of like, because this is important for our audience to understand that when a parent is incarcerated, the impact that incarceration has on the family, but more importantly, when the parent has children, men or women, how did you maintain your relationship with your children and then maintain that relationship? What type of impact can you say you had on them that you can look at today and say, because of this, they're like this?
Yes. It was very difficult to maintain that relationship, but the reason why I was able to do it is because I wanted to do it.
Come on.
And anytime I tell myself I want to do something, I do it. And it didn't matter that I was in prison versus being free.
Right.
I felt like I was still going to be a parent to my children. Like I didn't feel like the walls could stop me from being a parent to my children. So where there was opportunities for me to talk to them on the phone multiple times a day, I would do that. If I had to write them multiple times a day, then or multiple times a week or once a day, like whatever I felt was necessary at that time for me to keep a connection and bond with them, I did it. Whether
What that, in that regard, because that's the thing I want to flush out, because that's the thing that I think that society in general don't recognize how impactful that is, right? I've been in spaces where I've seen men, biological children or not biological children, but raise them from behind the door, behind the wall, behind the fence, and they come to them for the advice. They come to them for guidance. They come to them for direction. How did that play out in your relationship with your children? How did your children respond to you in terms of, one, being incarcerated, and two, respond to you in terms of like recognizing that regardless of your location, that is my father, and I'm gonna listen to what my father would say? Or was they defined like, you ain't here, man. You gonna tell? How you gonna tell me what to do?
It's funny you say that because it does happen. I think a lot of if your kid's mom shows you respect
Come on.
to the kids, then it makes it easy for the kids to show respect to you. But if they see conflict between the kid's mom and yourself, then the kids are forced to choose a side between parents, and that's where the difficulty comes in. To parent your children, especially if you have girls and you're a man, like they're gonna naturally side with their mom. And then also if you have boys are gonna feel protective of their mother, so they're gonna side with their mom. So you're kind of like in a lose-lose situation a lot of times, and you can't get aggressive with them, like because if you get aggressive with your children while you're away, it kind of it doesn't hit home the same way you might think it would.
Right.
Like when you're face to face with your child and you got to get, you may have to discipline them by talking to them more stern or, whatever you have to do to discipline your children. It does not hit the same over the phone because they definitely know that you're not there. But it's up to mom or grandma or grandpa or uncles to kind of reinforce things that you say.
Right.
And say, hey, don't forget your dad said that, or your dad said this. I'm gonna tell your dad when your report card gets here, or your dad said that if you do good in school, he's gonna send you some money. Things like that.
Right.
It helps out a lot.
And you know what? And that right there, how much of a strain was that on you in terms of like maintaining, your mentality? Because we're looking at prison, and then, okay, you trying to be a parent. This is the foremost thing on your mind, like getting out so you can take care of your children. But at the same time, you in the gladiator school. You in a joint where at any given day, like, lockdown, something happened, lockdown. How was you able to like stay focused and not get caught up in the environment because of frustration from not being able to like hug, hold, or console your children in time of need.
I think I mean, for lack of a better word, lucky. I just think that, you know, I was blessed, like, and fortunate to get through that because I've seen people get hurt for less,
Yeah,
for nothing. Like people just get beat up or abused by the staff or the officers for nothing.
right.
So, fortunately enough, the way that I maneuvered my way through it was just to mind my business, focus on me and invest every minute of the day into trying to better myself so that when I got another shot, because I knew I was going to get another shot,
Right, right.
you know, it just didn't, it was all about when I was going to get another shot.
That's right.
It was like, just be ready so that when I get my next shot, I can do everything that I need to do to win.
Right. And in terms of let's unpack some of what you spoke about the prison environment. Why do you think the system, the prison industrial complex, the new plantation, why you think they don't encourage or they don't promote or they don't support building a family unit or aid and assistance to parents of in like maintaining some type of connection with their children? Why you think that's not on the radar? Because I know for a fact, and you know this yourself, every program that exists in the prison system, if it deal with anything relative to family, if it deal with anything relative to counseling, if it deal with anything relative to like networking with society, prisoners came up with ideas in them laboratories and them thinking tanks and put them things into effect. Why do you think this is not something that the Bureau of Prison or any institution doesn't try to perpetuate?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that question because in the handbook, people say, I remember these guys in the law library said that in the prison handbook, it says that it's the responsibility of the prison to maintain family ties.
Come on.
And it says that in the handbook. And we would use that line right there when they try to justify sending you far away from your family. Or when they try to justify leaving you in the hole without phone calls or without visits and things like that. Just like you said, man, the prison industrial complex is a direct reflection of slavery, and if you've ever watched Roots or did any research about slavery, you see how families were split up and divided, and that was a way that they used to discipline people, and they continue to do that through the BOP. They split up families and send you far away, so to make it hard for your family to come visit you as a way to discipline you if they don't like you, and that's not right. They also, anything that you can see on a slavery movie or documentary or anything, when you think about it, it's kind of like the same thing.
Yeah,
You got people working for nothing.
Right, right.
You in prison, you got people working for nothing.
Come on.
You got people for years and years and years. They can't leave this one little
Plot of land.
little spot of land.
Yeah, come on.
Right? And you got people in prison doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Walking around in a circle.
That's right.
All day long.
Yeah. Yeah, come on.
And then, like, when you get mad for people for sticking up for themselves, you beat them.
Yeah.
You give them diesel therapy.
Yeah.
Or you
Tell
make,
them what these, because they don't know. I always don't know
yeah,
what diesel therapy.
Diesel therapy, I've been through it, is when they put you on that bus for weeks and weeks at a time, and you're just eating out of a bag. You only eating bag lunches. You're not getting a hot meal ever. Your meal doesn't catch up with you.
That's torture.
You can't get visits.
Yeah.
You can't use the phone. So you waking up in a different city every day. And you sleeping in the hole of every jail every time you stop. It's a lot.
And let's talk about this here, okay? Because we recognize that the prison industrial complex is the new form of slavery, 13th Amendment, justifies that. We recognize also that when it comes to family unification, and that not even on the radar when it comes to the prison deaths with Compton. Why do you think that the system, as it exists now, right? Why do you think this system right here, as it exists now, continue to stay in this space, like you say, one, send you out to, like in the District of Columbia. If you're under federal jurisdiction, you might wind up in wherever the United States territory. Wherever it's United States territory, that's where you can wind up at.
Mm-hmm.
Two, in terms of allowing you to have access to your family.
Excuse me.
They don't. And lastly, what impact does that have on the general population from your perspective, on the general population? How did you see that playing out in the general population? Because we know like when they had Lorton, and Lorton was the prison that was in Merle, that was in the under District of Columbia's government. We know when they had Lorton, that there was a correlation between the community and Lorton. When people got out, came out of Lorton, they went back to the District of Columbia and they did progressive things in the community because that was their town. That's where they was from. But now you have a situation where you in Walla Walla, Washington. Next time you look up, you in Florida. Next time you look up, you in South Carolina. Next time you look up, if you on your way out, now you in Ohio. How did that play? How did that, from your experience and your insight, how did that play on the mentality of the prison population?
Well, most people don't have to experience going outside of their boundaries, but the people who usually have to experience that are the Washington, D.C. inmates.
Come on.
And if you're a 007 inmate or 016 inmate or 000 or something like that, then 9 times out of 10, the BOP will send you out of boundaries because they had a label on guys from Washington, D.C. And, they try to take it out on the D.C. guys by sending us far away from home so that we couldn't get visits because they felt like if we got visits, then that would just empower us more, or that would just, it just would be too much like right.
Yeah.
So just because guys from Washington probably were a little more aggressive or more, joking about doing the time because of the culture, like people coming from Lorton, like, they was doing time and they wasn't doing time like that in every other prison across the country, So, the people's attitude was totally different,
Let me ask you this here. All right, so now you get out.
Yes, sir.
Right? Now you get out of prison and you got the opportunity to be with your children. What was that like? When you got out and now you got, not only you got the opportunity to be with them, but now, in your mind, what?
When I got home and saw my kids for the first time without having a CO or a window, a partition, or some chains on or something, that was a magical feeling. It was great. They all hugged me and they didn't want to let go. Every last one of them. And when I got home, my kids was grown, most of them. Not most of them. They were like older teenagers.
Right.
I had one that was 20, and he hugged me probably for 10 minutes before letting go, crying like a baby. And then I had, my baby boy at the time. He tried to slide $30 in my pocket. Like he said, "Hey, Dad, I was cutting grass." Because I wanted you to have some money in your pocket when you came home. And, that really touched me. Then my other son, he fired up the grill.
Yeah.
And he was cooking some hot dogs and burgers on the grill for me. So I really felt great, like, in that moment. My daughter, I was just shocked to see how mature she had gotten. Like, I felt like she didn't have enough clothes on. Like, and I tried to say something to her about it, and I just wasn't ready. Like,
Yeah, right.
she was not the little girl that I love.
Right.
And just to let you know, like that one first date was magical, but every day after that was very hard because I had expected the kids to be one way and feel one way about me coming home, and the kids had expected me to be another way, and they thought that I owed them something. I was like, hey man, you guys, don't you remember everything I've done for y'all, and don't you remember like that when Dad was home, we had good times, and they're gonna be good times again. And it had been so long that they really had forgotten the stability that a father brings to their family and their household. So they were really not trusting.
Right.
They were really damaged.
And that's the part that this industry, the prison industrial complex, plays on the family. It's designed, like you say, it's designed to create an atmosphere in the families that is no trust. It's designed to create a thing where it's no unity. It's designed to create a situation where it's no respect. So if I'm getting visits, I'm taking care of my children and I'm trying to do things with my child over the phone and in the visit room. But once I get out, because I didn't have the opportunity to do that, or they didn't create a mechanism within the prison industrial complex for me to have that kind of opportunity and access. Now, like you say, when you get out, it's an expectation on everybody's part. But looking forward, because you said that it's a struggle, and I think all parents coming out of the system are confronted with that. A friend of mine, he talking about he be struggling with his elder son, and they respect him, but at the same token, he had to be stern with him sometimes to try to get their attention. Like, look, I'm your father, so no matter what, and I will put hands on you if that's what it come to, right?
Right.
But that's the reality. But that don't change it's no love. It's lots of love there. But looking now, look as we get ready to close out, looking ahead and looking where you at right now, what do you have to say? What would your children say? First of all, what would your children say about if I say, like, your father, Ernest? How is your father? What's your father like? What do you think they would say?
They probably they imitate me all the time. They probably think I'm burnt out for real, honestly. That time would burn you out a little bit because it's like I have so many stories from there. I always reference that period of my life when I'm trying to teach them a lesson about something.
Right.
So I'll be like, hey, for example, it could be anything. It could be like, don't cut the line, 'Cause if you cut the line, and some places, man, some people might go upside their head.
You feel some kind of way about
Right,
it.
they're not gonna like it, and they might try to put the knife in you for that, and they be like, for real, just for cutting the line, and I'm like, yeah, like it's that serious.
Yeah.
And so I like, and they probably might say that, they definitely respect me, and they've seen me, start over from nothing and actually build our family back up, to better than it was before I went away.
And what you say about what would somebody say, like, man, what's up with your kids, man? What kind of kid? What would you say about your kid? How would you look at? How would you identify?
I have great children. They're very intelligent. They are all handsome and beautiful in my eyes. They're generous people. They stand up individuals. They don't condone none of the things that society is
right.
making okay.
Right.
They're not on none of that.
Right.
They definitely understand that people who tell on people, ruin people's lives a lot of times. Like, so they're living in that culture where now they kind of having to see like, okay, what's the difference between people snitching and what's the difference between, people trying to have a nice community. You know what I'm
Right, I
saying?
got you. I got
Like
you.
my kids are growing up now, and I don't try to influence them to do anything other than to be good people and to be financially responsible. And
Let me ask you this here as we close out.
yeah.
How can people get in touch with you, and what are some of the things you're doing there that you think people should be made aware of?
Yes. Oh, thank you. Well, you can always reach me at straightroutetrucking@gmail.com in reference to trucking and in reference to just like if you wanted to talk to me about justice reform or have me come out and speak or write because I am an author. I should be publishing a book about reentry in the end of this summer. Also, I write for FAM. I write articles about people who are over sentenced or wrongfully accused and things like that. But yeah, you can reach me at Ernest Boykin, III at gmail.com. That's ErnestBoykin, III at gmail.com. And, you can even call me at 202-285-1153. I really appreciate this opportunity, Mansa Musa. I really love what you guys are doing here, and I love this platform that you've built up because you're really, really giving a voice to the voiceless, and I'm big on that. Like,
You heard it. There you have it. Real news, Rattling the Bars. This is Ernest Boykin. You would never believe that after hearing this conversation, that this man was one time just as involved, raised his children to be what he by his own definition, responsible children, responsible members in society. In the face of all the problems that our children are being confronted with, his children has risen above. And it's because of his influence. And we can't take this lightly. We implore you to think about this. You can listen to what Ernest say, and it's millions of other people like Ernest that's in the criminal justice system, fathers, mothers, that are raising their children from behind the walls and behind the fence. We ask you continue to support Rattling the Bars and the real news, because guess what? We really are the news.
Thank you so much for watching the Real News Network, where we lift up the voices, stories, and struggles that you care about most. And we need your help to keep doing this work. So please tap your screen now, subscribe, and donate to the Real News Network. Solidarity forever.